I want to begin by thanking Michelle Piso-Manukian for organizing this event. My presentation is titled The LAC Incubator, How I Arrived and Where I'm Going. My name is Misun Dokko. I'm an assistant professor in the English department. So how I arrived. I'm going to talk about this by giving you a brief summary of my research background. My dissertation focused on marginal characters in Asian American literature. I translated theories on the abject, others, and subalterns to my reading of these characters. When I came to LaGuardia, I was stuck on writing an article about representations of feral children in South Asian American literature. I found it productive to analyze them through the lens of Emmanuel Levinas's theory on the other and ethics. According to Levinas, the other is something apart from but adjacent to beingness. The other is otherwise than being, other than what we are capable of fully knowing and being, rather than the opposite of beingness. So the other is elusive because we cannot quite grasp them because they're otherwise than what we can normally comprehend. For Levinas, ethics consists of an acknowledgement of otherness that disrupts beingness. Crystal Parikh reads Levinas and departs from his historically transcendent other and places otherness in the context of race and nation, arguing that a reckoning with the other creates an ethics of betrayal, a betrayal to the subject's racial and national identity. So in light of Parikh's instructive reading of ethnic literature, I found ethical confrontations in Chitra Divakaruni's short story, A Perfect Life, and Banu Kapil's experimental text, Humanimal, where encounters between feral children and women, quote-unquote, characters compelled the women to question themselves. So the next step was that I wanted to apply this to something else, and this is where I got stuck with the article. So my research convinced me that an engagement with otherness must challenge the observing subject's coherence. And I believed in this so much, I wanted to see how it could apply to and sharpen art and news reporting. But for one reason or another, those applications didn't feel right. So I felt really stuck. And my participation in LAC suggested that I could and I should look at myself and my own teaching for application. That is, I found I was interested in English 101 students with a multilingual background. These students attended regularly, completed work, but struggled to pass. They earned Ds, failed, or eventually disappeared from the course. They were also reluctant to receive extra help. Despite general classroom interventions that enabled their peers to comprehend texts, paraphrase them, and offer a contribution to the topic, these students could not, or they could barely meet these objectives. So something was amiss, and I wasn't quite addressing it to help these students. So a case in point, in fall 2019, there was Jeffrey, which is a pseudonym, who attended regularly, completed his homework, but earned an F and a C on his first two papers. He never spoke during group work or barely spoke, and when I called on him, he took long pauses, leading to occasions where other students would step in to respond. When Jeffrey had an opportunity to revise a paper that he plagiarized from an article we read in class, he agreed to come to office hours. Long, uncomfortable pauses continued between questions and answers as we talked about basic concepts from the article, with which he struggled to comprehend. His notes were in simple and imperfect standard English, but at least they were his words. When he turned in his revision, instead of using the notes we generated during office hours, he resorted back to plagiarizing the more pristine language from the article. So something about my intervention wasn't working, something about the lesson of not plagiarizing wasn't working, something wasn't working. There are always 1 to 2 students in my English 101 courses who remind me of Jeffrey. They are elusive in one sense because they are often withdrawn and avoid extra help. They are elusive in another sense because their attendance and work habits allow them to fly under the radar and avoid attention until perhaps the end of the semester. If I am attempting to test a theory of ethics in this case, then the attention has to shift to me and my teaching practices. How do I contribute to their withdrawal and to their isolation? What steps are missing in my scaffolding? How does my teaching overlook and fail to address the root cause of why they're struggling, right? They're putting in effort, but they're failing. So what can I offer as a response to these questions? Where I'm going. So my ethics of teaching consists of assessing and changing what I'm doing in the classroom to better support those who are getting overlooked. In practical terms, my research has evolved into identifying the kinds of students I described in the previous slide. I have observed that regular classroom and even occasional one-on-one interventions that help their peers progress do not work on these students. So during the breakout showcase, I will explain how my current research tries to translate a theory of ethics into the classroom.